Welcome to the Community Matters podcast. This is season 2, episode 2, A Day in the Life. It's here where we lean into preventing incarceration and also exploring the science behind human behavior from somebody who knows. The person we are talking with today transformed the way that I think about humanity, behavior, and at the end of the day, the real significance of a safe childhood. I know I will never be the same person that I was before I heard from Dr. Sim, and that was nearly a year ago. Today, I'm finally able to bring his words to you and to others as you're on your own journey to make the world and the community better, smarter, and more resilient. Enjoy. Dr. Sim, I just want to really thank you for your time, because the reason I wanted to interview you for this podcast is when I heard you speak about a year ago at a warden's conference in Iowa, what you said actually transformed the way I think about people. And it was really powerful. And so I just want to share that with anyone that I can. And I honestly have, but I think it's most powerful coming from you. And in my mind, you connect science with empathy in some ways. So I'm just really grateful for your time today. So I know we have some questions to go through, and I think that the first one would really give us a good understanding of how you got to where you're at today. So Dr. Sim, can you just share your story and how you got involved in corrections in the first place?
Well, first and foremost, Jennifer, thank you so much for the invite, and I'm honored to be here. And yes, I'm very happy to share what I've learned and studied over the years in the field of corrections. To answer your question, I came from the other side of the world and went to Canada with the intention of studying microeconomics. Long story short, I ended up obtaining my bachelor's degree in psychology. Then from there, I went on to do my doctoral study in psychology here in the United States. Initially, I wanted to be a neuropsychologist, but I think I was so smart enough to know that I wasn't smart enough to become a neuropsychologist. Instead, I landed on a doctoral internship program working at a women's multi-level prison and a maximum prison for men. When I first walked into the prison, I was not sure what to expect, but I remember saying to myself that this is just going to be temporary. But over time, I was intrigued by the population. And here I am 21, 22 years later, I'm still here. But before the internship, I was not interested in working in the prison population because I felt it was a tough crowd to work with. But to my surprise, I'm enjoying every minute of this wonderful career in corrections. And of course, looking back, I would not trade in this wonderful career that I believe God has given me. And yes, I want to also take the time to thank Warden Heinrici and the Iowa Medical and Classification Center that invited me to speak at the conference you mentioned. And I'm glad we got connected.
Me too. So we're interested today in learning about the science behind behavior. And you shared in your presentation in the Warden's Conference last fall the differences that can emerge in people with their brain development and how that connects to behavior. So I just want to take this one step at a time. And can you share with us just some basic information on parts of the brain and their roles in how humans behave?
Sure. I think I have to go back about 17, maybe 18 years ago. I was working in a juvenile facility providing psychological services to juvenile sex offenders and incarcerated juveniles with serious mental health issues. I recall a time that I was working with a young man who was making good progress, and then after that, everything fell apart. I remember telling myself, I need to study more about why people do what they do and why they are callous and unemotional. So I went back to my first love, my first interest, and that is the study of the brain. Um, so I would say in the course of the several years working with this population and teaching part-time at the university, I read a lot of research and journal articles. And I realized that the brain undergoes three major developmental milestones. Generally, the brain development proceeds from the back of your brain. So think of it as by the spinal cord. And our brain proceeds from the back of our brain by the brainstem and move to the front, which is the frontal lobe. So the first milestone is by the brainstem, where it regulates autonomic functions such as sleep, circadian rhythm, breathing, temperature regulation, digestion, and so on and so forth. But it is the second and third milestone of the brain that intrigues me the most. And the second milestone of the brain development is within the limbic system. And this is the area of the brain most rapidly developed between the ages of 4 to 6 years old. The limbic system is also known as the emotional brain. This is where emotions and emotional memories are stored. So if you want to know where the limbic system is, if you go on the top of your earlobe on both sides, your left and right top of your earlobe, you go 1 inch deep on both sides, about 1.2 inches deep in both sides. You go into your brain. That's where the limbic system is area that I realized based on research that it plays an important role. And in that limbic system, there is an almond-shaped group of neurons called the amygdala. The amygdala resides, like I said, in the limbic system area, and it plays a very important role in our survival. When we feel safe, the amygdala will calm us down, but when we don't feel safe, this part of the brain, the amygdala, keeps us hypervigilant. I do believe that we are hypervigilant in our surrounding because it ensures that we are safe. So this is where the fight flight disposition occurs. We often hear about the fight and flight. This is where the part of the brain that prepares us to fight, to flight, or even to freeze, depending on the situation. But because the amygdala role is to regulate fear and other emotional memory response, studies have shown that the amygdala may be related to psychopathy and careless and unemotional traits. So if you think of it this way, the amygdala is there to keep us safe. If you don't feel safe, this part of the brain goes on hyperdrive. I think the best way to describe this is imagine that when you are between 4 to 6 years old, when this is the time the amygdala is developing exponentially. And this is the time where healthy emotions are best developed when the environment is safe, secure, and nurturing. This is a time where I believe that the amygdala, the limbic system, start to perfect their attunement to be attuned to the caregiver's emotion and the people around them. This is where they will also learn appropriate emotions and what is not appropriate emotions. I would say that this is where social communication and understanding and interpretation of someone's intentions are developed. So let's give an example here. I always like to use this example when I do my training. So let's imagine that this part of the brain is being developed between 4 to 6 years old. The child's environment goes into a tailspin. Chaos at home, where screaming, yelling, physical and verbal attacks, abuse are the highlight in this home. So during this time, the amygdala, or within the limbic system, the amygdala, is constantly on high alert because of the chaotic environment, because the child is trying to feel safe, but because the chaotic environment, it keeps the amygdala in hypervigilance. So, for instance, if the abuser comes home every day, it could be a guardian or it could be a caregiver that comes home every day, abuse the child. It could be verbally abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. The child's amygdala, through classical conditioning, are being heightened or in hypervigilant when he or she hears the abuser's car coming home or coming down the street. And when the garage doors open, the constant state of alertness and heightened emotion uh, uh, do stifle the development of the amygdala. So consequently, this young child between age 4 to 6, around that time, instead of the amygdala being nurtured, the amygdala end up to be on constant hypervigilant mode, and the stress that goes on with the individuals, I do believe, stifle the development of the amygdala. Now, you see, I spend a lot of time talking about the amygdala because I believe that this is the part of the brain that where we learn to empathize with others, and sometimes we find that individuals I work with, they have a hard time empathizing. And then it brought me back to an article I read in 1995. It talks about the Kluver-Bucci syndrome, and I think I talked about that at the conference. The Kluver-Bucci syndrome is by two French scientists, Dr. Kluver and Bucci. They basically asserted that the underdeveloped amygdala, the amygdala that is not developed adequately, may result in hypersexuality and loss of fear, just to name the two major behaviors that we see. And the main point I want to bring up here is this loss of fear. So these individuals who have who commit crime or violent behavior, they have no fear in them, and they are not fearful of the consequences. So when we work with individuals in our custody in a prison setting, you'll find that the consequences for some of these individuals doesn't really work for them because they are not afraid of the consequences. They are not afraid of assaulting the staff or those around them, because consequences has no bearing to them. It doesn't deter them from their destructive behavior. So that's the first. So that is the second wave of the part of the brain that the amygdala area is important to understand. But before I talk about the third wave, there's two hypotheses that I like to bring up, and that's called the fearlessness hypothesis, which suggests that within the limbic system, antisocial individuals, due to the dysfunction of the limbic system or the amygdala area, they are not afraid uh, uh, to to commit the crime. But the point that the fearlessness hypothesis says that they do not experience any appropriate physiological response to risky behavior. So when they commit a risky behavior, when they do something risky or stressful, it doesn't bother them because of the way that part of the brain is developed. And then, of course, the second one is what they call the sensation-seeking hypothesis, where because of the dysfunction of the amygdala area, it creates a sense of discomfort within them, and therefore, in order to achieve some homeostasis within themselves, this individual would engage in antisocial or destructive behavior to raise their arousal. So that's the second phase, second wave of the development.
Wow, that's a lot. And I know you're moving in to the third wave, but I would like to just ask before that, if a child between the ages of 4 to 6 is in the situation that you described, is there, in your understanding or in your belief, a way to neutralize that trauma or the abuse and allow for more brain development? So my example would be, if you take child A in exactly who they are, right? Everybody's not going to respond to all of this the same, but if you take one individual and they were to experience the status quo 5 days of the week versus 2 days of the week, is there like a real proportional development that could occur? Or do you feel like some of these negative experiences are impossible to overcome and to
Thank
allow
you for
for
that
any
question.
development? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that question, Jennifer. I think the neat thing about our brain is so complex, and as you well aware that we all know that every brain is different. It depends on the neuroplasticity of the brain. What that means is new neurons are being birthed on a daily basis. So if an individual between 4 to 6 years old experience trauma and if they are removed from the environment and we start to nurture them and we start to provide them a safe environment, yes, the brain is sophisticated enough. The brain is wonderful enough that it can learn to adapt itself to the new environment. So I do believe that because of the neuroplasticity of the brain, which that means the brain always constantly adjusts to its environment. So over time, if you provide a nurturing, a caring, and environment, it can help the limbic system to regulate itself to what I have my air quote here, to normal, to normalcy. And also that there are a couple of things that one can do to try to calm the amygdala down. So I mentioned earlier, the amygdala is always on a hypervigilant mode when they are stressed out and when the child don't feel safe. There are a couple of things we can teach them at this age, maybe to teach them to just calm themselves down by doing a lot of focusing exercise. And you probably heard, and I'm sure your audience have heard this many times, where the idea of mindfulness comes in, where they learn how to calm down the amygdala. So this constant mindfulness activity would teach the child to over time regulate themselves, especially at a very young age.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Now, I know you were going to go into, I want to make sure that you covered everything you wanted to in terms of the areas of the brain before I move on to the next question. Yeah.
Of course. As I mentioned to you, when we talk about the population that I work with, the third wave of the brain development, which is the frontal lobe, is another crucial part of the brain. Obviously, behavior is a very complex organ, and I'm not saying that these are the only two parts of the brain that produces antisocial behavior. That's not what I'm saying. What I want to share with your audience is that just reading up the article that there are two parts of the brain, the limbic system I talk about, and now I'm going to talk about the frontal lobe, plays a huge role in also in causing the antisocial behavior. As I mentioned, and I think I failed to mention actually, there's some studies out there that shows that a smaller volume, that means a smaller amygdala, are 3 times more likely than a larger amygdala that exhibit aggressive, violent, and psychopathic behaviors or traits. So as you can see, that studies now show that individuals with smaller amygdala are 3 times more likely to exhibit antisocial behavior. And so, for instance, if my memory serves me right, individuals with borderline personality disorder, for example, the amygdala, if I'm not mistaken, is about 8% smaller than the average individuals who do not have suffer from borderline personality disorder. So just an example how the amygdala works. But the third wave I like to talk about right now as well is the frontal lobe, and this is a critical stage of uh, of the brain as well. And I think this is the part of the brain that we see an exponential development between ages 7 and 12 years of age. This is where this is the part of the brain, the frontal lobe, where we learn to think things critically, analytically, and how to reason and understand consequences of behavior. This is also the part of the brain that looks at reward seeking. So when we look for reward and motivation, this is the part of the brain that plays an important role, which include attention. But one of the things that I like to highlight also about the frontal lobe, this is where impulsivity takes place as well. So individuals with impulse problem may have frontal lobe dysfunction, where the processing of information are not adequate. And this is where they interpret information they receive a little bit different from what the true intention of the person. Um, so it's important that the frontal lobe is functioning well. So there's evidence in literature that there's a relationship between frontal lobe dysfunction and aggressive tendencies. I think the evidence is strongest for an association between prefrontal damage and impulsive aggressive behavior. So when we thought about the frontal lobe, this is where I think a lot of critical thinking occurs. And if individuals do not have a well-developed frontal lobe, it is my belief, therefore, they are less likely to think things through about their behavior before they execute their behavior. This is where impulsivity occurs. So therefore, it is important that this part of the brain develop adequately as well between ages 7 to 12 years of age.
Okay. So when we look at the children in our communities that are between the ages of 4 and 12, for instance, that and recognize that they have some critical development happening, and as members, maybe not of their core families, but members of their communities, members of their schools, people that engage with them. How do you see, or do you see an opportunity for communities to help with this development in some direct or indirect way? Or more specifically, do you think we can have any impact from not the core circle for these individuals?
Thank you for that question, Jennifer. I think um, the community plays a very important role in the child's development, aside from the family dynamics, right? We spend a lot of money on higher education, but I think there's not enough money being spent on the front end, which is an early education. If we provide more opportunities for these individuals at this very young age, encouraging them to uh, learn how to regulate their emotions. I think that is something the education system could potentially help these individuals who are raised or being in an home environment where there's a lot of chaos. So to your point, when you talk about education, I think it is important that these young individuals, that when they go to school or get their education, I think it would be helpful for them to go to a school environment where they can feel safe, they can feel nurturing, and I think that is something that the school environment could do. And of course, activities outside in the community also helps as well.
Okay, that's really helpful. Do you believe and this is maybe connecting some of the dots that I think you've laid the groundwork for, but do you believe that more healthy brain development in youth would improve public safety and reduce prison populations?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Um, well, we do know that like I said, the brain is a complex um, um, organ, right? Well, there's some studies that shows that antisocial behavior has some genetic influence, uh, but there are some twin studies that shows that approximately about 50% of these behaviors has to do with genetic, and also the environment plays a role. So we do know that maltreatment in childhood can predict an individual to commit crime, and we also know that that the environment that we create for the child is very, very crucial. And so I think we live in a society where uh, we put a lot of emphasis on electronic devices. I think we have lost the art. I think children may have lost the art in socializing, may have lost the art in communicating, uh, having a relationship, the bonding with their loved ones, with their friends, and social interaction seems to be important because we are social being, right? So I think in many ways that the I believe the high use of electronics is associated to mental health issues as well. So it is my opinion that if we can learn how to interact with children more and to provide an environment for them to relate and bond with other individuals, I think that will help out in the long run. I do know that uh, these days, right? Gone were the days where we see children going out and playing outside in the yard and doing fun stuff out in the yard. And I think uh, heavily involved in electronic devices have, in some ways, take them out of physical activity that I do believe that these children need. I believe they need to spend more time in going out and play and being and do more physical activity. So I think that's one of the things that I would suggest that this can improve the public safety because for one, when you create healthy brain, I do believe you create healthy behavior, right? Because I do believe
Yeah.
that the brain is the behavior occurs because of the brain. If the brain is damaged or dysfunction, the result of it is poor behavior. So if you can create an environment for healthy brain, like giving them proper nutrition and keep their brain healthy, I think in the long term uh, it will be helpful for society.
So I'm going to requote something that you said that was super powerful to me. And I think it's something very simple. It's when you create healthy brains, you create healthy behaviors. And that seems very obvious, but true. And you really highlight and leaned into healthy bodies, in terms of nutrition, in terms of physical activity. I found it super interesting that, one of the wardens that actually attended the conference that we were at together had shared with me how healthy, safe relationships are the most important thing she believed to rehabilitation for women and juveniles. And so um, that relationship piece is something that I'm not hearing you speak to quite as much as maybe more of the physical health. Do you have any thoughts on those on how you think the healthy relationships would play in? Do you agree with her?
Oh, definitely. I completely agree about healthy relationship because when we interact with one another, when there's healthy relationship between two individuals, there's something called oxytocin. That's a hormone that secretes in our brain, and this oxytocin actually I call it the love hormones, right? This is where oxytocin secretes, and what happens when two individuals interact with each other is actually floods the brain with good kind of hormone as opposed to corticosteroid, which is a stress hormone that eats up your brain and destroy your brain cells, whereas oxytocin actually helps your brain to uh, uh, feel safe, feel connected. And I completely agree with that statement that connecting with one another is very, very important. And that's why I said earlier, we spend so much time, this generation, the younger generation spends so much time on electronic devices. That's not interaction. That's not relationship. Relationship is when two individuals or a group of individuals come together and just being with another person builds up the oxytocin in the brain. And that's good. That's a good thing to have for our brain. So yeah, relationship is so crucial in healthy brain development. And again, of course, we are talking about healthy relationship. We're not talking about destructive relationship or an environment where it's not safe for the individual.
Perfect. I love how when we say something, you make it, you tell the science behind that. And I guess just as an architect, I don't readily know that. I mean, you connect these dots, but you don't really understand the actual interworkings on a molecular level like you do. And I just think that adds so much to the decisions that we make. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to move gently from brain development in youth into really the community that you work with every day, people that are incarcerated right now, in terms of if and how they can be rehabilitated. So from a community perspective, because this is a community podcast, just really wanting to get more people aware and engaged in helping others and elevating their communities. So what is the most impactful thing that a community can do for those right now needing rehabilitation as adults, from your perspective as a clinical psychologist?
Wow. I have to say that the prison setting is a whole different environment. It's a whole different world. It's like sometimes I feel like going to a prison is like a different planet altogether. And I think for the community to understand or uh, uh, to understand what's going on, these individuals in who's in the prison, I call it in the prison setting. One day they're going to come back out and be part of the community. And so many of them who has been in prison for many years, over time, because of the prison setting, they do not know how to uh, have meaningful relationship with, uh, again, my air quote here, normal people. All their interaction in the prison setting is, I'm not saying all, but most of their interaction in a prison setting is hostile, manipulative, and so on and so forth. So when they come out to the community, they do not know how to, again, my air quote here, live a normal life. And I think the community needs to understand that this is very, very difficult for them because all they know is uh, is the criminal life. So to come back out to try to live a normal life, what we call normal, is not normal for them. Because to them, what's normal is to manipulate others, to get what they want, and get their hedonistic needs met. So I do believe that it would be great if the community, like for example, groups such as church groups or the communities around the surrounding community, would come in and volunteer their time to help these individuals to see how normal people live, right? So I think one of the things that the community could do is take time to, if the prison allows you to come in and volunteer the time and provide some services to them. And I think they can see that the world out there, not the prison setting, but the world out there, the community is a safe place. They can feel safe in the community. And I think we have to come to the realization also that for the community, I think we need to come to the realization that the prison setting is now a mental institution. a lot of the individuals in our custody have mental health issues. And it seems now like our prison system is like a mental institution, and many of these individuals who have mental illness, and they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna come back out to the community one day with still with their mental health issues. So I think it would be helpful, in my opinion, that the community understands that we are dealing with individuals who have mental illness, and we need to find ways to connect them to the community before they return to the community, because it will be a drastic change for them moving from an incarcerated environment to an environment where they are freely to roam around the streets.
So what I've kind of deducted in terms of what you think may be misunderstandings between the community and people that are incarcerated would be their sense of normal is totally different from people that don't experience incarceration sense of normal. They don't have or give the benefit of the doubt. Like, so they don't expect the best of people because, well, in their experience, people haven't been the best. And then also that this is a lot of this is connected to mental health. And it's not just they're evil or a bad person and that's why they're in prison. Maybe it's more physical than that. Maybe it's actually a lot deeper rooted than that. And like you said, could even go back to their childhood in some cases. So would you say that really sums up what you think somebody who isn't exposed to what you are every day and doesn't see what you see every day, what they might misunderstand the most about individuals there? Okay.
Yes, Jennifer, yeah, absolutely. And I would say a lot of the individuals in our custody, yes, I admit there are a lot of them has psychopathic deviates. They are psychopaths and sociopaths. I get that. But then we must also remember that a lot of individuals have mental illness as well. And the thing is that when you put a bunch of a group of psychopaths, antisocials with an individuals who have mental illness, you can just imagine how chaotic that can be for these individuals who have mental illness. So if we are able to provide good programming, which my department is working tirelessly to provide good programming in the prison setting, I think it will be helpful for the community to understand that some of these, not all individuals that are in prison are antisocial. In fact, a lot of them have mental health issues. It's just that we don't have mental health facilities in the community to help these individuals. And so they ended up being in the prison setting, and that's where they get the mental health treatment, in the prison setting.
That's very enlightening. So I'm going to shift a little bit here to the future and maybe reflect just high level on the past. So you've been working, since you were in Canada and had your internship in this world that's related to incarceration, even though you didn't necessarily see yourself there. But over time, I'd like to kind of understand if you see things improving or if you see things that are going in the wrong direction. But above all, what has changed from when you started to now?
Wow. One of the biggest changes I had to say over the years is that when I first joined the Department of Corrections, there were a lot of emphasis on solitary confinement, putting them in confinement or what we call now restrictive housing for months, years. There are some individuals who are placed in restrictive housing or solitary confinement for many, many years. Obviously, studies have shown that this is not working. One of the things I've seen the biggest changes over the last several years of this in the department is that the shift from solitary confinement, putting them in solitary confinement for many years, the shift has now been more towards getting them out of solitary confinement and providing them more programming. Because I think the biggest change for me is this. Imagine somebody in solitary confinement for 5-6 years. All they see within themselves is the walls that they see. There's no human interaction. There's not much going on in the individuals. And then guess what? Tomorrow you are being released from prison. These individuals who have been in solitary confinement for 4 or 5 years now, you put them in a community, they do not know how to live their lives. So one of the biggest changes that I've seen over the years is the department has moved towards the direction of providing programming, and not only that, preparing them to return to the community to live, air quotes here again, a normal life. For us, it's normal, but to them, it's not normal. So what the biggest change for me is the emphasis on more programming, more mental health treatment, the reduction of solitary confinement. I'm so excited. There is a push right now to provide more emphasis on programming. And one of the things that I focus a lot in programming, and that's part of the reason why I was at the conference a year ago, is I am so passionate in creating a program that's specifically tailored on the amygdala and the frontal lobe. So this is my passion right now, is to try to reconstruct, not that I can reconstruct, but to try to tap into the amygdala and the frontal lobe and to try to get that neuroplasticity going and the neurogenesis going in these two parts of the brain. So one of my passion right now is programming, and I'm very, very fortunate that we have an assistant director of the department who encourages us to try to create programming that specifically tailored for the individual in our custody, and not taking a program from the community and bring it into the prison setting. So I'm excited. The changes I'm seeing right now, that we are creating a program specifically for our population. And that's one of the biggest excitement I've seen.
That's amazing. As you're going through this, it really seems like you've leaned into where you think you have the biggest impact in that programming in as one area, whether it's programming or something else. What do you see as the things that are in your way for where you want to go?
Sure. I think the biggest challenge is that having more services out there when the individuals in our custody gets released to the community. It would be wonderful to have more programming out there, a transition place for them to transition to, again, my air quote here, transitioning them to the community, right? So that it'd be nice to have more transitional facilities for them to slowly transition to normalcy. I think that's the biggest challenge. We need more facilities and manpower. I do believe that staffing is one of the biggest challenge right now because it's a very difficult population to work with, because you're working with antisocials and you're also working with individuals who have severe mental health issues. And make no mistake, you and I know and that there is nothing glamorous about working in prison, nothing. And we all know that the prison setting is not a fun place to work with, because this is a place where we are being verbally abused by the individuals in our custody. We are constantly not only being harassed by them as well, but some of us were assaulted. So the biggest challenge, therefore, for me is to have, I do believe, is having staff that are passionate enough to want to see life change. And I think that is the biggest hurdle right now, I do believe, throughout the country, is to find individuals to come in to a prison setting and to work there and to help these individuals to change their lives. So those are the two main things I would point out. One, I want to repeat myself here, is a good transition place for them to return to the community, and also to get more staff, more individuals to come into the prison setting to be part of the staff that wants to see lives change.
That's such a hard thing. I mean, it's hard to find staff just in general, and then to find the right kind of people and then also this realization that that it is not that work that you feel good about at the end of every day. It's a long battle that isn't very rewarding. Sometimes it takes 40 years to see, the change that you work at every day. So it's a difficult calling, and it's one that you're doing. And I think I'm good to just wrap things up today with gratitude for you. I'm grateful that you were exposed to this world, because I can definitely see how you're able to articulate something really complex and scientific in a way that's digestible for the average person. I've felt that. You've changed my perspective on so many things, and the way that you speak is beautiful and impactful and clear. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. And if there's anything that we can ever do to support you, we're more than happy to do it, Dr. Sims. So thank you so much for your time today, and for the time that you put towards this effort and your passion every day, because we know it's not easy.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for the opportunity as well.
The Community Matters Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2, A Day in the Life by JLG Architects.